Hi there, and welcome to this week's module. We will be exploring the disability rights movement. And so last week we focused on learning about the very difficult, troubling, and just dark and quite horrible history of disability, where we explored eugenics, specifically the institutionalization, forced sterilization, and even the murder of many within the disabled community. Prior to that, we learned about the models of disability, where we situated the medical model, and hopefully you've reflected on the consequences of a medical lens of disability through exploring the just very terrible history that we explored last week, and have thought some more about then social models of disability, which are very much a reaction against the practices that you saw in the medicalization of disability. And so you will start to see this week the social model coming into play as we learn about advocacy leading up to the passage of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which helped lead to the passage in 1990 of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So this week, you'll be continuing to read My Body Politic. I also have two brief readings for you about the disability rights movement, so please be sure to read this chapter prior to going into your media. You have a Google slide presentation here that I will have you reference prior to watching this piece on the 504 sit-ins. The first piece of media I'd like for you to review is Crip Camp. So Crip Camp is a new documentary. It was recently released on Netflix, and it is fantastic. I am really excited to share this with you. You will be introduced to Judy Heumann, who is a lifelong advocate and very strong, influential leader in the movement for disability justice, prevalent in the 70s as well as today. I would like for you to review this Google slide presentation prior to watching what I have linked here, which is an episode of Drunk History. Now, I want to say that in sharing this with you, I am in no way condoning or supporting drinking or drinking culture, but rather am looking for you to watch a really very accurate depiction of what happened during the passage of 504. Why I think that this is an important piece is that for the first time, I think truly one of the first time, I think, in history and how we portray disability in the media, casting in this piece was highly acclaimed from the disability community. As we will learn in future weeks when we look at media representation of the disabled community is highly, highly problematic, from the way that folks are typecasted or portrayed to the lack of roles played by disabled characters. And there was an outpouring of support for this episode on Comedy Central because of the representation of disabled actors playing the disabled figures in this episode. And so, yes, there's a little language in it, but it is factually accurate and I think a really important piece, and another introduction to Judy Heumann and an overview of what happened leading up to the passage of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. I also have here two additional pieces with Judy Heumann. This is an interview and then her TED Talk. I know that you'll enjoy both of these. Crip Camp is over an hour long, so give yourself some time this week to make sure that you have time to read your chapter as well as time to watch the documentary, and then these three shorter pieces. You also have more assignments this week than you typically have assigned. Of course, you will have your reading engagement where you are sharing an overview of what you've learned in your reflection. I love that you are being creative and showing what you're learning in different ways through videos or graphic organizers, so keep the creativity coming as you are comfortable with exploring. And you have three additional assignments this week. And the First is your action project plan. And so you've already posted to our discussion board your proposal or your idea for how you're going to move forward with your action project. This is an opportunity for you to solidify a plan. And so individually or in a group, whichever way you're pursuing your action plan, I'd like for you to put together a mission statement. This is a formal statement of what your goal is, what your aim is for engaging in this action project. And then I'd like for you to create a chart that identifies the steps for you to reach this goal that you've set or your mission statement. And so you can say who will do what, by when, what resources, what is your timeline. I want for you to be specific. This can be a work in progress. So I recommend submitting this as a Google Doc where you can go in and revise. You can even make it as a checklist, and you can update it as you come closer to reaching your goal for your action plan. Your ideas that you've shared are great, and I'm really looking forward to seeing these plans come to fruition. Okay, you also have your first application assignment due this week, and so you have 4 application assignments for the remainder of the term, and these are an opportunity for you to go above and beyond how you engage with the content in the weekly modules. As we're in your reflections, you're sharing an overview of what you've learned and a reflection of how you're applying it to your life. But these application assignments are an opportunity to more practically and deeply apply the content to more real world situations. And so for this application assignment number 1, you're going to do a 24-hour environmental observation. So sometime this week, I'd like for you to identify a 24-hour period where you're going to take notes and you're going to observe your environment. So you're going to take notes on the built environment, your physical environment around you. Do you see stairs or ramps, automatic doors or push button doors, accessible lighting? Do you see any braille in your space, accessible bathrooms, parking? What are the things that you're seeing in your built environment that are inclusive and accessible to folks within the disabled community? But I also want for you to observe the social environment. So thinking about attitudes or language, are you seeing forms of prejudice, discrimination? Are you hearing inclusive language or maybe harmful language, like words like crazy or lame? So I'd like for you to jot down notes and then summarize your observation in a 1-page double-spaced, grammatically correct reflection. Please also be sure to turn in your notes. You can, if you're taking your notes on your phone as you go, then you can just take a screenshot. If you're jotting down notes, you can take a picture and submit those.